CX panel discussion. Now we're looking at talking about how AI will shift customer experience to the next level. One technology trend that has caught everyone's attention in recent years is the way artificial intelligence, which is AI, is evolving. Its disrupting nature has given its enormous potential with countless applications. Among the many possibilities that AI promises, customer experience, which is CX, seems to be completely overhauled. This panel discussion will cover how can we champion digital inclusion to reach a variety of customer segments in the post-COVID-19 world. Why chatbots and AI have the potential to transform CX provision for the better. How AI and data analytics improves customer experience. Understanding where AI-powered solutions will make the greatest impact on your customer experience and business bottom lines. Key lessons and wider CX implications for the future. How AI, ML, RPA applies to improve customer experience. Addressability, wherein we talk about best experiences for offline-online integration data monetization. AI techniques to support omni-channel customer and data journeys. Well, ladies and gentlemen, for this panel, if you may have any questions, you can type in on the Q&A tab on your screen. We'll try and address, if time allows, to the panel today. First up for our panelists, we've got CARMEN OPREA, the Vice President Product, Happy Fresh Singapore, who will be joining us. CARMEN is responsible for delivering key product and business unit strategies through bold experiments across the entire customer experience that helps Happy Fresh make data-driven decisions and grow faster. We also are joined by our panelist, ANGUS Kong, the AVP of Data Science, Tokopedia, Singapore. Well, before coming to Singapore and his experience with Tokopedia, Angus was the tech lead in Google AI and worked on famous features including Gmail, Smart Reply, and language understanding in Google Assistant. We also are joined by MILLIE, the Global Head of CX, Managing Director, Standard Chartered Bank, Singapore. Well, firstly, MILLIE, thank you so much for joining us. You're joining us live from the US and it's almost past 3 a.m., so thank you for that. Well, MILLIE is the native New Yorker and Singapore transplant who has a wealth of knowledge about innovation and strategy that combines this with the use of data and design thinking to reshape the client experience and innovation. Well, also we're going to be joined by Praveen Alala, the Director of Digital Services, APAC GE Digital Singapore. Well, Praveen is a digital transformation and an IoT big data focused executive with extensive experience in driving internal and external change in energy space across the complex and diverse APAC region. Well, we also are joined by ATIENZA, the VP Customer Experience Designer, Union Bank, Philippines. Well, previously, AJ was a part of the relationship management team covering top-tier local corporate clients of Citibank NA Manila. AJ was also a senior consultant for the RCG Global Services. Well, this entire panel discussion, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be moderated by Joshua Arvinlath, CTO, Combinat AWS Machine Learning Hero, Insights Jepto. Joshua is an AWS Machine Learning Hero and currently leads the AWS Machine Learning Zero to Hero global events discussing different topics on machine learning and the machine learning engineering. Well, ladies and gentlemen, now as per schedule, it is time to get our amazing panel on the stage and on your screen. Over to you, Joshua, for taking it forward with your incredible panel. Thank you.
All right, thank you for that. All right, so let's get started. So I think for the first 5 minutes, it's best if we get to know more about the panelists. So we have a really amazing panel here. I think we can start with answering the first couple of questions. So the first question would be, what do I do in my current work, and how does it apply, or how is it related to the current topic right now on AI and customer experience? So I think we can start with Angus, and then AJ, And then after, yeah, so we can start with them first, and then we can have the other panelists talk about themselves as an intro.
Hi, it's Angus here. So I'm the AVP of Data Science in Tokopedia, and Tokopedia is the largest e-commerce platform or marketplace in Indonesia. So my current job is to oversee the strategy of the AI in Tokopedia and also to help our data science team to make impact in all the aspects, including the product search, product recommendation, fraud detection, risk management, and other things like user experience, which is quite related to the topic today. Thank you.
Hi, Joshua. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Appreciate for inviting me here. My name is AJ. I'm from Union Bank of the Philippines. We're the 8th largest bank in the Philippines, but I think we are the biggest bank in terms of digital transformation. I currently lead the team that is responsible for building the retail digital banking platform of Union Bank. And the goal really is not to deliver a digital banking platform, but really to transform banking here in the Philippines through thoughtful customer experience enabled by the latest technology. And that's where AI and data analytics comes in.
All right, thank you for that. Carmen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Carmen. I lead product for Happy Fresh. Happy Fresh is the leading grocery delivery in Southeast Asia. We are present in Indonesia, Malaysia, and Thailand. And because I think of the sensitivity of our e-commerce vertical dealing with food and sensitive customer preferences, for us, customer experience is really key and central to everything we do. In the context of data and analytics, we do not have only a dedicated analytics and BI team and product analytics team trying to helping us uncover all those relevant customer insights, but we also have a super exciting personalization team that's been focusing for the last 2 years on making our product more relevant and personal to a wide range of customer segments we serve across the region.
Great. How about you, Millie?
Thank you. I'm Millie Gillen. I am the Global Head of Client Experience at Standard Chartered. And right now, my focus is on being that voice of the customer and the stakeholder when it comes to making business decisions, when it comes to ensuring that the right experiences are in place. One of the things that I usually say to people who are either new to the financial services industry or new to my organization is that you have the power to make a positive difference in this world through financial services. And I take that very seriously in my everyday job and in everything that we do. So I'm constantly weighing that against all of the decisions that we make.
Great. And then Praveen.
Hey, just taking a cue from Millie. So I lead the G Digital Services operations for all of Asia Pacific. So the challenge that we have is pretty interesting. How do we make sure that G, which is a 125 years old company, to make sure that it still continues to stay relevant for 100 plus more years? So we believe digital has a very critical role that we would do going forward. Part of it is using things like digital twins. And my key role is to make sure that not only do we achieve internal transformation so that people understand the value, but more importantly, how do we make sure that with digital, we're able to deliver value for the customer and a really good customer experience so that they continue sticking on to us, particularly in the energy industry, which has been very, very heavily impacted by the current pandemic going all around us.
Great, great. Awesome. All right. So now that we have the intros completed, it's about time we talk about the main topics. All right. So let me choose one of the questions from the list. So yeah, the first question is, so the topic would be chatbots and AI. So why chatbots and AI have the potential to transform CX provision for the better. So I'll repeat again, why chatbots and AI have the potential to transform CX provision for the better. So we'll have Angus talk about this topic for the next 3 to 5 minutes, and then if other panelists would like to add on top of that, feel free to do so. Go, Angus.
Hi. Yeah, so I think chatbot has been a very hot topic recently, especially with all the advancements we made in NLP, this area. And I think among all the AI, all the areas on the AI, NLP is one of the toughest area, the hardest one to tackle. And today, I think our technology is very prepared to understand our language, the conversation, and which enables chatbot to be more useful in customer service. A lot of times, I think the biggest challenge is how to provide the right interface for our customers to actually address their issues. And then chatbot has been considered one of the most natural interface. And it's been really, we have proved that it's been really useful in the real use cases. So today, one important thing is that we found that a chatbot could actually, in some situations or in some cases, it can potentially outperform our human agencies, to be honest. The reason is behind all the not just the intelligent part, but also the AI is well connected to the backend system, to all databases, to understand the customer as a one complete unit. So when the customer is talking to the chatbot has all the information in just less than a second to understand this customer and to get all the for example, the transaction history, to get the logistic information from our database. And this actually provides a better experience than talking to a human agencies, to be honest. Yeah. So I think, and also it's just not just the programmatic logic part, but also it's very economic way to do customer service. If you design a chatbot very well, it can be replicated like hundreds or thousands of instances, right? So you don't really need to hire human agencies. So the company can actually focus more. We can actually put our resource more on the critical part where we believe that the chatbot cannot handle well. And so in this aspect, I think we are able to leverage the cost reduction from the chatbot to invest more heavily on the critical part to level up the user experience.
I see, great. So all right, so for the other panelists, would anyone want to build on top of what Angus just shared, or do you have other answers from your end? Right, 3, 2, 1. All right, so thank you, Angus. We'll proceed to the next question, but thank you for that answer. You good with the next question, guys? Okay, let's proceed. Okay, so the next question would be about AI and data analytics on how it improves customer experience. So again, the question is how AI and data analytics improves customer experience. So we'll have Sir AJ talk about this one for the next 3 to 5 minutes. So go for it, AJ.
Thanks, Joshua. I like to I actually like to rephrase the question of how as a company we can deliver a better customer experience. That's it. Then we look at the tools that are made available now, and one of the key tools that have made a ton of progress in the recent years is really artificial intelligence. So there's really a lot of things that you can do with data analytics and artificial intelligence. One example that I can share with you when we refreshed our, let's say, their mobile app, is we look at basically what were the transactions that were being done mostly by our customers. And for example, they do a lot more of funds transfers, followed by bills payments, then followed by top uploads for your mobile prepaid wallets. So we leveraged the data, we analyzed it, and looked and used that as a decision point. Okay, then let's do our design of our cost of our mobile app to really prioritize those 3 key features. In addition to that, we also use that data to really design our backend and infra systems to support those kinds of transactions, so that we can make it easier for customers to do fund transfers and easier for them to do their bills payments, and so that they don't have to find it anyway. I mean, if an engineer builds a mobile app, they probably build it in such a way that it's going to look like a form. But if you use data analytics combined with customer experience, you'll be able to design in such a way that you'll be able to prioritize in such a way that you are actually adjusting it to how the customer expects a banking app would behave. Sorry, excuse me. Another would be simply for bills payments. We know that we have recurring bills payments, and the traditional way of thinking about it, if you're coming from a bank, is you just offer a way for customers to be able to pay it, right? But you need to understand that those payments in the past are data, and there are actually, we can look for patterns, and from those patterns we can build on a predictive engine where we can help our customers by simply or by simply giving them reminders that, hey Joshua, just don't forget you'll have an upcoming bills payment in the next week. Or in case we don't see that data in the next few months, we can remind you that, hey Joshua, you might have missed paying your utility bill. So those are super simple nudges that we think are very helpful for customers. At the end of the day, what we want the customers is to worry less of those recurring things, and let the machine, or let the app powered by the machines and engines take care of it. So yeah, that's how we view data analytics at our level. And of course, definitely there's a lot more for how we can leverage on the customer experience. It's just really up to the team to how to be really get creative in delivering a great customer experience. You can really expand it in such great ways.
Okay. I have a follow-up question on that. So were the strategies and techniques, were they planned ahead of time, or basically you decided to have this sort of like solutions at the beginning, and then after a couple of months, maybe some of the customers suggested that, hey, maybe you can have something like this to further improve the customer experience? Or is it something that is there's a feedback loop or feedback cycle?
That's a very good question, Joshua. And I think it's a mix. It's a mix of actual customer feedback, and also us as a customer experience professional to look for those small details that would where we would extract maximum value, that will really help our customers. Feedback loops can be forms of customer reviews in the App Store, or even from your friends who are using your app. And another feedback loop is basically the data that they're giving you by doing the transactions on through your platform. And we leverage on that and look for patterns. I mean, for data analytics, it's really a journey for each company. There will be young companies that's starting to learn how to leverage on data or even organize data. Then that's where you come in from descriptive analytics, and then you transition to become more experimental, where you can do predictive analytics and then eventually prescriptive analytics. So we're depending on the product. There's really a bits of pieces that's coming from the different types of analytics, and which the result would be artificial intelligence, because you start building models and engines that's basically learning throughout the time. For specific products, it's really, I mean, just going back, it's really a mix of feedbacks. You use data to look at the past behavior, then you create a hypothesis that if we do this function, I think they become more stickier. So you roll that out, then review the data. If that confirms it, then let's make it a permanent program. Then you move on to another program to uncover those hidden treasures in the data.
Great. Thank you so much for that. All right. So for For everyone else, would you like to add other notes on for the same question, or would you like us to proceed to the next item? So 5, 4, 3, 2,
Hello.
1. Right, I go for it.
Hi.
Hmm.
Yep. So I think the original question was how could data analytics to improve the customer experience, right? Yeah. I think the one thing we need to figure out is that what is the analytics? What does it do? And in many, I think most of the cases, if you are looking for a reason, you do an analysis, right? If you want to build a solution which you don't know how to build, or which you don't know what the solution is, we call it science. So I think that's the main difference between data science and data analytics. And then I think for a customer experience, it's really difficult to understand your customer because they are not your employees. And that's where I believe that data analytics become very important. You in the journey to improve the customer experience, you ask a lot of questions, you don't have answers. You try to find the reasons why or even you don't know whether your customers are happy or not. These are all the questions that you need to do through analytics. But when we talk about analytics, don't forget there is a very important term, data. So you really need to get reliable data to understand your customers. And I think there are two things we usually forgot. One is that you need to put in those props or like how to monitor the customer experience. And then you can either design in two ways. One is the subjective way, one is objective way, right? So for example, if you provide the questionnaire and then the customers can answer some questions to tell them how they feel about your customer service, then that's what we consider like subjective. But there are other ways. For example, in chatbot, what would be the goal here, right? We want to use the chatbot to help a customer to solve their issues in the shortest time. That will make your customer happy, right? So maybe you can measure how much time they spend with your chatbot. So that would be called the objective way to measure. So if you collect enough data, then you can do a very excellent analytics on those things to find out the reason. Thank you.
Great, amazing. Thank you for that.
I'd like to weigh in. So on both this first question and the second question that you asked, AJ, earlier, so I completely agree and concur with both AJ and Angus in terms of how this can help the customer experience. In terms of how do we find or how do we use the data points to create these concepts, what we do is definitely design thinking. But in order to start design thinking and in order to find these specific use cases or these specific areas and solutions that we want to build, we do initial research. And we combine that with both the quantitative side as well as the qualitative side. Now, you might think that the qualitative side, that's great, but you're only looking at a small sample. Really what we're looking for is around directionally, what do our clients want? What are their sentiments? What makes them happy? What is personalization, or what does data mean to them? What is it that they actually truly want? And then you might also think, well, it's still qualitative. How can you quantify that? And how can you compare that to the quantitative data? And there are many different methods, which I won't go into here, but I'm happy to speak offline with anyone. So one of the methods might be NPS. Another method might be ROX, return on experience. And what that does is it translates the words and the feelings from the qualitative research and turns that into quantitative data, turns it into numbers. And what we do is we use that to help us to figure out where are the pain points. How can we empathize with our clients? Where are the pain points that we can try and solve for, build solutions with using design thinking, and in that respect, essentially create, this massive solution that can be divided down into specific use cases, such as chatbot and what's specifically in the chatbot. And of course, this is not a linear process, but of course, I would probably describe it in a linear process to make it simple. I would also state that it is important to keep this as a circular or a cyclical type of process, because you constantly need to feed more data into the system, if you will, in order to make it to continue for it to be robust and relevant, because customers' sentiments and their opinions will evolve and will change, not just because of your interactions, but because of the the wonderful solutions and interactions from other organizations.
Great. Thank you for that. Yeah, heard about the NPS part before, the metric. Yeah, it's super effective. Yeah, agree with those points. Yeah. All right. Thank you for that, Millie. Yeah. So for everyone, if you're okay with it, I'll proceed to the next question. But definitely, you can build on top of the answers from the three panelists earlier. All right. So next question would be, the next topic would be how AI and basically understanding where AI-powered solutions will make the greatest impact on your customer experience and business bottom line. So again, I'll repeat. It's about so the topic would be understanding where AI-powered solutions will make the greatest impact on your customer experience and business bottom line. So we'll have Carmen answer this question or this item. Go, Carmen.
Thank you. So I'll use the example of Happy Fresh. In the last 2-3 years, we've had a focus on leveraging machine learning and AI for superpowering our shopping journey and our customer success processes, let's say. And we think there's tremendous value in those and also strategic value for our organization long term. We ended up focusing as being an e-commerce company, right? We ended up focusing on the shopping journey and trying to understand how do we apply these algorithms to the specifics of each vertical. In our case, it was groceries, but I really think it's very important to first understand that you're gonna have to frame the problem depending on your industry. So sometimes even in the scope of e-commerce, sometimes you want to tailor some of these algorithms and applications towards a very wide discovery process. If what you want is to have a customer that stays on your platforms from hours and hours and goes from one product to another product. So that's one use case. In the grocery perspective, our bet was on relevance. So we didn't want to offer a wide discovery process, but we want to understand as much as possible about you as an individual, and as a consequence, recommend the most relevant product to you. And with that framework in mind, of course, after experimenting with all the others, so I really think of these applications as experimental in nature. So after experimenting, we got to understand a bit of that. And once we understood that, we supercharge basically every step of the shopping journey. And I'm talking here search, I'm talking about recommending certain stores to you versus other stores, recommending certain categories versus other categories, recommending products that might be of interest to you during checkout when you think you've completed the entire shopping journey, but no, not really. We just want to remind you that these products are very, very relevant to you. And all of that worked well for us. The customer has proved to be responsive to good applications. So definitely recommending everyone to start leveraging the power of these algorithms to improve an overall shopping journey or customer journey. I think another use case for us, and it speaks a bit about the potential of these algorithms in a more invisible way and in backend type of applications. For Happy Fresh, one critical use case is around out of stock. So basically, it can happen that a certain product in a certain day in a certain store is out of stock, and that's not nice if you're a customer and you're in that situation. So actually here we've put a lot of focus and we've leveraged the power of data to try to predict what items might be out of stock, and then in case an item is out of stock, would try to complete the journey all the way, and then inform you as a customer. If you still want to go for that, we would make data-powered recommendations on what you might want to replace this product with. So if you're buying a certain type of cheese, then we would recommend, okay, in case it's out of stock, why don't you consider replacing it with item 1, 2, 3. So a lot of data first optimizations to the customer journey, or definitely for our use case.
All right, thank you for that, Carmen. So would anyone want to build on top of what Carmen just shared, or do you have other answers or approaches to this specific item? All right, good. All right, so we have a couple more questions, so don't worry. We actually have 4 or 5 more questions, but I'll proceed to the next one. So the next item, the next topic would be about AI, ML, and RPA. So how is it's applied to improve customer experience? So the next topic would be AI, ML, or RPA applied to improve customer experience. So Praveen, can you share more on that topic?
Sure. So let me first kind of clear the ground a little bit. My experience and what we work with is a lot diverse or different than what others are talking about. So from my point of view, we focus on 2 industries, which is really power generation and oil and gas. Something that we need, all of us, for our day-to-day journey. You can't survive without electricity, nor can you drive your vehicles without oil, or hopefully electricity in the future. Yet this is not something we touch or feel the big factories in our day-to-day life. So the customers that we work with become a lot diverse, and the nature of the work that we do becomes a lot more industrial in nature. So one of the big things that we are trying to do from a machine learning point of view is something that we call really digital twins. And the way to kind of visualize a digital twin is think of having a model of yourself in the cloud somewhere far away. The model looks exactly like you. It has got all your physical dimensions. It's got a history of your entire health. And then based on your daily habits, right, it would take into account how much you exercise, how much you run, what do you eat. It would be able to forecast or predict what would happen in the future, right? So it would be kind of a great thing for us if we were to know, at least physically, what would happen to us 2, 3, 4 days down the line. If something is going to go wrong, it tells you that a lot before. So that is similar to the machine learning experience that we do for our customers as they start thinking about their big turbines which generate power for you, or big refineries which generate oil for you. So a big part of the digital twins is really predicting things or before they fail. A part of it is also making sure that your maintenance and everything else is really optimized. So with that being there, the customer experience kind of falls into 2 big dimensions. And this was a learning journey for us as well. The first dimension for us really was, how do we get everything right? So the physics behind it, the science behind it became really important. How do you make sure that everything falls into place? What your algorithm predicts is actually accurate. The second thing, which I would say that we personally learned a couple of years down the journey, is how important a CX kind of a thing really is. Sometimes we feel that we really deal with engineers who do not really worry about things like CX. But what we started feeling, to ensure adoption, to ensure that customers are actually proud of the solution, the CX and what they actually see and feel becomes really important. So while you can have the best of the machine learning kind of experience, you have to be sure that the solution that you have becomes easier to use. And that is where I feel that the industrial world can learn a lot more from the B2C world. So whether it's banking, whether it's Happy Fresh or the Amazons of this world, the some of the CX is what industries like us, we are trying to incorporate in it, so that people are used to using it, they are adopting it, and really a part of the customer experience or a part of the digital transformation that we are trying to do becomes a customer experience transformation, and also make sure that along with that there's process transformation. So that's how we are looking to apply things like AI and ML to our customer experience, but particularly to our industrial businesses, where the kind of customers and the interactions that you have become a lot different than what we see in the everyday world.
I see, I see. Thank you for that. All right, so for the other panelists, would you like to build on top of what Praveen just shared, or do you have another take for this item? Yeah, we have plenty of time, so go for it.
I can add from our experience for RPA. I guess one of the sins of the past for banks is we do have a lot of siloed systems and a lot of manual processing that involves in processing of documents. We've identified those and as good candidates for RPAs. Because sometimes there are systems that are really siloed that you can't really extract APIs out of. So you're really forced to do RPAs. And for us, that really increases a lot of our efficiency in the processing of documents, which translates to faster turnaround times to our customers. So it can be an implementation of an RPA can result to faster credit approvals for credit cards or faster approvals for loans. So the just like what I think Carmen mentioned, it's the invisible thing from a customer perspective that happens. It's the magic basically that happens, that you get instant approval or instantly get a car loan approved, which for the customers now that's a surprise. That's an excellent experience because they're traditionally expecting that you would be getting back to them after a week or after 3 days. So that for us, it's the benefit of RPAs.
Great, great. Thank you for that, AJ. All right, so we have a couple more questions. I think 2 to 3 or 3 to 4. And the next item would be about the key lessons and basically key lessons and wider CX implications for the future. So we'll have Millie and Carmen take this on. So Millie, please go first. Go for it.
Thank you. So some of the lessons that I've learned and the lessons that I actually do keep in mind, constantly remind our teams as we're working on AI, machine learning, and all of these emerging technologies. And of course, we're all learning at the same time. The number one lesson that I've learned and I constantly remind everyone is empathy. Don't forget to keep on empathizing with your customers. Now, what does empathy really mean? Replace the word empathy with pain. When I'm constantly saying we need to really understand and empathize with our clients, what I'm really saying is I want you to feel the same pain as our clients. Because if you feel that same pain, then as you go through the motions of creating these solutions, maintaining these solutions, making the right business decisions, and continuing to evolve and build upon that you're constantly keeping the client top of mind because you feel that same pain. The next piece is around good data versus bad data. And how can you possibly get good data, or where can you start to get good data? Especially nowadays with all of this fake news and a lot of things that are going on in the world, whether it's social media, online, etc. It's really important for you to constantly question, what is the source of this data? What is the source of that data? And drill all the way down. And specific to AI and to customer experience, I want to bring up an example. Several years ago, when life insurance companies were starting to experiment with trying to underwrite people to assess the risk of their lives before issuing a life insurance policy, they wanted to try to see how can we use social media data, or how could we use data outside of asking these questions or being invasive to prospective customers. And one experiment focused around Facebook, using someone's Facebook page to assess the risk, the life risk factor. And there was one particular case that was false. And this is where I want you to constantly question, is this good data? Is this bad data? Is this relevant? What should I do about this? So in this particular example, there was a consumer who was going through underwriting, and the company looked at his Facebook page, found that he liked scuba diving, liked certain things about it. So it implied that he was a scuba diver or that he was a fanatic about it. And so what this means is it increased how much he had to pay for his life insurance, and it increased the amount of risk that the company put on his life. When in fact, he was never a scuba diver. his wife actually was a scuba diver and a huge fan of scuba diving, and he supported that. So good data versus bad data. How can this have implications in your client experience and longer term in your client loyalty? The next piece is responsibility. Remember that we are all very responsible for the positive impact and the negative impact that we have on this world and all of the people in it. So one model that I like to constantly remind people of is Google's model. Don't be evil. Don't use the data in a negative manner. Make sure you're responsible with the people's data because they're trusting you and you have earned their trust. That doesn't mean that it's a one-time thing. It means it's an ongoing, trusting relationship. The next piece is around gender inclusion. Don't forget that there are 50% different genders in this world. Of course, there are new ways of seeing gender, so please excuse me there. And don't forget that various perspectives need to come into play, various characteristics need to come into play. For example, with Alexa and Google Home, which I am a heavy user of both, the response to any voice for these devices and these AI tools is around deeper voices. So if my young daughter speaks, her voice is not picked up. But if I force myself to have a deeper voice, my voice is picked up. And the AI and machine learning tools and engine build upon the intelligence from that respect. So don't forget that piece. The next piece is around financial inclusion. Don't forget that even if we constantly evolve in our technology, in the devices that we use, that there's still people who we still need to actively, we have the responsibility, we owe it to them to actively help them, pull them up in the economic system, in the financial inclusion aspect. Don't forget to keep that top of mind as you're looking at and building these solutions, because if you don't, then there is this high likelihood of creating and helping to create a bigger gap in the financial balances of the world. And the last, and I think one of the most important lessons of anything in life, but especially when you're dealing with new technologies and your customers, is to embrace your failures, celebrate your failures. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to go and advertise. Yes, I looked into this and I failed, and this is why it failed. These are the lessons that I learned. And you know what? Because I failed earlier on, I saved X. I saved our reputation. I saved our clients' reputation. I saved the money. I saved our company money. And as a result, what I'm doing differently is I'm still going after it, going at it in a different manner, or I've decided let's shelve this and let's pivot and move on. And not only embracing the failures of being humble and admitting you failed, but also being humble and accepting that people have failed, not because they're trying to, but because they have wholeheartedly tried to make an effort to do good, to do something that is positive and to make a difference. So Carmen, over to you.
What can I say after such an inspiring intervention, really? I'll balance that, but my learnings are, I think, completely different. It really depends on the business application. For me, the story in the over the last 2-3 years has been a lot about making sure these experiments with data are driving relevancy from a business perspective. I don't think we were able to frame the problem at such a high level as in your business case. So I guess one of the answers there is that one of the findings there is that depending on the industry, you might need to frame your problem differently. So for me and for my team in the last 2 to 3 years, it was a lot focused on trying to identify what actually moves the needle, what creates a good experience. And that brought us to really boring, practical, tactical things. So things like measurement frameworks became incredibly important for us. Also trying to understand when we've basically optimized the usage of data in a certain use case. And I think there was quite an interesting lesson there on balancing, let's say, the business objective was forever curiosity of engineering and product teams, because I think engineering product teams can have almost a research approach to working with data, and it's a never-ending story. Just one experiment can lead to another experiment. But one lesson, if you're thinking from a high-level business perspective, is to make sure that you put those experiments in direct correlation with the results you're able to extract out of that. So it has been a big lesson, and it has guided our steps and our allocation of resources and priorities throughout the last years.
All right, thank you for that, Millie and Carmen. Amazing answers. All right, so we have 2 more items left. We're almost done, but these are very critical items. So the first one would be, how can we champion digital inclusion to reach a variety of customer segments in a post-COVID-19 world? I'll repeat the question. How can we champion digital inclusion to reach a variety of customer segments in a post-COVID-19 world? So we have assigned this to AJ, Angus, and Praveen. So please go for it.
Okay, I guess.
Go ahead, Praveen.
Sure. Hey, thanks, AJ. I think this is a very, very relevant question in the times that we have right now. And I'll be honest with you, like a lot of other companies, we were not really ready to even understand what this pandemic might do, or what could it really mean in terms of digital, and how it would be different. So think of it in terms of how our world used to run was really anything that we would do in terms of digital or customers would be going to customers, meeting them face to face, teaching them about our systems, our solution, training them to make it work, and making sure that we are an integral part of the transformation. And now completely turn it with COVID, when all travel is gone, you cannot really move anywhere. All of you are stationed in one place. Customers who are used to going to offices, everybody tends to work from home. You've got people all over the world. In some places, the internet is good, like us. We can still share videos. At other places, people even struggle with getting the basic things on audio even done. And when you talk about gigabytes of data moving in, all that becomes really tough and difficult in the COVID world. So that's what we were kind of faced with. So the way we started looking at it was, I think we all understood this was a new normal. While people did not expect it to last for a long time, it has now unfortunately lasted for 6 months, and people still don't know when that would end. So the way we started thinking about it was a pivot in terms of what and how we can do work remotely completely, right? Things completely became, how do you start thinking of moving to Zoom? How do you start interacting with customers? How do you make things which are more face-to-face? If you're training people, it has to be done using online quizzes, using other ways to move forward. The big advantage that came about was, unlike a few people who would be typically involved in what we do, because of doing things remotely, the reach became a lot bigger. So as compared to earlier, in which we are trying to include 10 or 12 key participants, because of the pandemic, the boon which happened was everything became a lot more mass audience. So that was something that really helped us. And that was something where we started going to including a lot more people. And this is what kind of made it possible. So I feel the pandemic has got its pros and cons, but the pros is really all these remote learning and remote teaching techniques and connecting with people remotely have made a large variety and a large group of people a lot more involved. Go ahead, AJ. Thanks.
Just to build on Praveen's great answer. When I read the initial question, it says champion digital inclusion. The first thing that came to my mind, since I'm coming from a bank, is financial inclusion. But in our journey for financial inclusion in a country, in an emerging country like the Philippines, we need to understand really the basics. If we're going to look at just the data, there's a lot of assumptions that you already made, that they're already digitally they already adopted digital means, that they're aware that they have data connectivity, and they also trust the mobile app or the online platforms to do that. But in reality, it's not always the case. It's always the simplest solution for those that we want to be part of the digital ecosystem is there's still a lot of I guess struggling or still lack of trust in this digital channels that we are pushing out. For Union Bank, I think that we were recognized as one of the second most helpful banks in Asia during this COVID-19 situation. It was a huge commendation from a banking survey. We did a lot of things to really contribute in this challenging situation. We understand the nurses and the doctors are the frontliners. So we thought to ourselves, let's not contribute to the worries of the people. Let's make sure that our customers and our future customers would have readily access to their money. And also the government, we help the government in distributing the cash assistance to those citizens in need, and by introducing a lot of programs. The first program that we introduced is we were able to implement a way for you to send money, not just to another bank, but to remittance centers. In the Philippines, there's a lot of remittance centers. They can be pawn shops or courier services that acts as another counter for you to withdraw money, and they have a ton more presence compared to banks. For us, we basically expanded our reach to 11,000 counters when we launched this. So we're able to send money to loved ones in the provinces, or to family members that have no easy access to banks or ATMs. And another is a more creative way is when we do the cash distribution program to remote cities in the metro. We understand that the approach is per town or per city, and there will be a lot of people that when they distribute the prepaid cards, and we understand that they need the cash immediately when the prepaid cards are distributed. That's why we built two bank on wheels. So these are two trucks where we put in a couple of ATMs each, and whenever there will be cash distributions, those trucks will come running together so that the people can withdraw money instantly. So it's really a very, very practical approach, and I don't think you need AI for that. I think just like Millie mentioned earlier, it's empathy that's very key there.
Great. Angus?
Yeah, I think coming from an e-commerce background, I think we definitely know how this world is changing. And then after COVID, actually, this is still a story that's ongoing. So right now, I believe every one of us is still learning about this. Not just everyone here, but also our customers. They are also trying to learn how to live a new life after this COVID situation. Everyone is changing so fast. So what we found is that in the first few months, you saw that there were panic buyings in different countries. And if you were in Singapore, you go online, it's like not one single platform would provide shipping services. Like they're all overwhelmingly occupied. But after like 1 or 2 months, no one is doing that anymore, right? So people are trying to learn to accommodate. So I think e-commerce company like us were also learning to observe all the new behaviors, new patterns. Like one thing what we found is that people come online, they focus more on the F&B, food and beverages, but they don't really buy that a lot. I mean, the CTR, CVR is not that high. They just come and shop. They shop around. So what we do is, okay, would you do if there were no COVID-19? When you go to the supermarket, what would you do? Actually, we found that myself, I would just try to compare. Okay, so this apple is 500 grams, $10, and that one is. I'll try to compare the price and then per the weight unit. We actually launched that new feature on our platform to help our users to compare price per the weight. So this is actually improving a lot our CVR, CTR. So people don't really need to spend time to click into it and then try to do their own calculation. This is something we learned along the way, and the world is still changing, but we are trying to change our own behavior too. And the other thing is that now that more people come online, they have a different buying patterns. So for us, I think to improve the user experience is to make sure that your machine learning models or the algorithm behind is learning continuously from this new traffic. So we do have this kind of engine behind, and we saw that we try to keep up with the trend, and we saw that actually it improves a lot. If you update your machine learning models very frequently, you see that increase in the CTR, CVR quite a bit. These are all the things we need to remember, that your models have to pick up the new patterns, and not just the models, right? It's like the thing I mentioned. We also need to find the new patterns which has not been included previously. So that's what we can do, I think, in terms of machine learning. But to be honest, for the inclusion part, I think the original question, the key word is inclusion. Inclusion is really not about AI, to be honest. I think the inclusion has to be kicked off from this different perspective. Machine learning has to learn from what already happened. But for those not happened yet, it's our responsibility to address as a human.
Great. Thank you for that, Angus. So great answers, Praveen, AJ, and Angus. Definitely a very meaty topic and set of answers for that item. All right. So for the last question, so the question is, where do you see AI has the most important role across the spectrum of CX, from ideation to operationalization, and what issues cause the lack of adoption today? So I'll repeat the question. So where do you see AI has the most important role across the spectrum of CX, from ideation to operationalization, and what issues cause the lack of adoption today? So go, Millie.
So I think that the most important aspect is across the board, and especially at the very beginning when it comes to ideation. And this comes after researching and empathizing and really feeling the pain of our customers. And once we put this AI piece in terms of the ideation piece, that can help us to only create a snowball and create even more robust ideas and continue to innovate around that. And then in terms of operationalizing, and this also brings me to the next part of the question of what we lack today to adopt, is around we need AI, we need machines, we need all of this new technology to help us to get to that next piece. So it's one thing about dreaming up these really amazing, great ideas. It's another about actually implementing them and starting to build them. And it's really difficult today, regardless of if you are a part of an organization that's very established or an organization that is very new, does not necessarily have the baggage of legacy systems, because we need to build that bridge between the ideation piece and the realization piece. And that's where AI, machine learning, RPA all comes into account and can help us get there. Now, in terms of what are some of the issues that causes lack of adoption today, if you are part of an organization that's more established, has legacy systems, a lot of the issues are around the legacy systems, because if you're trying to build more solutions that will help to, and that will enhance those systems or impact those systems, what you end up doing by default is trying to create more band-aids to move to the future. And that just snowballs into something that may not necessarily be what you ideated at the beginning. It might be watered down. It might not be as robust as you had hoped. And one way to get around that is either through new technologies, through partnering with startups that can help you get there and be that bridge while you're trying to create mends in those foundational cracks that you're bandaging around. The other aspect is the lack of robust data, the lack of good data. Right now in financial services and in more established organizations or industries, there's a lack of robust data beyond what we typically may collect from a customer. And so one way to do that is go and ask the customer. Maybe they'll give you the answer. Maybe they'll give you the right answer. Maybe they'll give you the accurate answer. Maybe they won't. So one way to scale up is through partnerships, through the exchange of what can I give to these new up-and-coming e-commerce companies or these established organizations in other verticals, in other industries. How can I leverage some of the data that they have? They have already the trust from a lot of customers, a lot of the customers that we want. They have that data. So through using partnerships, getting that data can help to create more robust and well-rounded AI and machine learning engines. But then it also helps to open the path for ecosystems to help you go into those discussions to be a part of ecosystems instead of competing against ecosystems.
All right, amazing. Thank you for that, Millie. All right, so yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. But before we end this amazing session, let's have each panelist share 1 to 2 sentences each to wrap up this panel. All right, so the order would be Carmen, then Praveen, then AJ, then Angus, then Millie. So go for it, Carmen.
I'm really excited about the potential of AI and data-driven algorithms when it comes to e-commerce. I think it will become an integrated part of the way we shop in the future, and it will bring a lot of efficiency, personalization, and relevance in our digital shopping experience in the years to come. And that would only allow us to do more in that context and discover the products and the insights that are useful to us.
Praveen.
Sure. I think just to kind of summarize, right, in my mind, a lot of digital is all about people, process, and technology, with people being pretty much at the center of all the changes that happen. And with that being there, the outcomes that we get for our customers and the experience that they will get would be kind of pivotal and important, as the journey that we were talking about in the next 5 years has now become the next 5 months due to everything happening around. So focus on it, and I'm sure growth and everything else would just follow.
Great, AJ.
For me, we are at that point in history where digital adoption is key to survive as a company. But the challenge is not just adopting to digital, but delivering a great experience. And for me, coming from a bank, we're not really known to deliver a great experience. So that's why, as a product team, as a product manager, we look out to look for inspirations. You look at the Googles, the Amazons, the Facebooks, the Grabs, and everything, who really deliver great experiences. I mean, you yourself, you yourself have experienced this. So when you experience those new applications and services, your behavior changed. So that's key into understanding that customer experience is not siloed. It's more an changing how customers behave should be your guiding principle. If customers expect you to be delivered instantly, then you should achieve that for your institution. It can be challenging, of course, definitely, but that would be the ideal goal. That I can be. I mean, I don't want to compare it with other thing, but that change in behavior, that expectation from customers that brought about by these great technology companies, that helps the other companies who are trying to catch up, or the other industries that are trying to catch up, really improve a lot. So that's for me a key to consider.
All right, thanks for that. And then Angus.
Yes. I think the other things we talked about today, I think mainly is around two things. One is how do we keep the AI relevant for the longer term? So even though you could find a solution, but as the world changing, you have to update it. It's not like something you created and then can be used for long term. It's not like some engineering solution. AI solution is based on data. So when your data changed, your solution has to be updated. That's one thing. And the second thing I would say probably would be the bias. So the bias from the data and then the bias from the model. This is a very interesting topic, and the way to solve the bias or to identify bias from a model could be very tricky. And I think I talked about this topic in other conferences that we actually noticed some bias when we were building the Gmail Smart Reply. That's a quite interesting story. But in the end, if you try to find the news, I think Gmail team they decided not to propose he or she ever in the candidate sentences because this just they just don't know how to address the bias there. You can see that this will greatly impact your user experience. So sometimes you have to be prepared for the undressable bias, then you need to roll back some features for sure. That would actually ruin the whole user experience. Thank you.
All right, and then Millie.
Thank you. So I am really excited about all of these new possibilities, the new types of experiences that can be created, and the evolution of how things can be. I'm excited about how our future generations will experience all of the different industries that this panel makes up, as well as just living life. It'll be so different from the way that we grew up in, that we live today. And so I'm excited about that. But with that excitement, don't forget we have the responsibility to don't be evil, to be human, and to remember to be human, to remember our customers' pain points and feel that pain, and to remember to help include those, whether it's from a financial aspect or diversity aspect or any other aspect, help to bring them up, include them into anything that you do, into the solutions that you build, and especially with AI and client experience. Thank you for having me.
All right. So thank you too. Thank you to everyone. And that's it. Thank you for this amazing session. Great work to everyone. And then that's it. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Praveen, Carmen,
Have a
Millie,
nice weekend,
Joshua,
everyone.
Angus, AJ. Thank you so much.